We're about to go live, ladies.
Oh, love it.
Okay. Are we live?
Probably.
Yes, we are. Yes.
Yes, we are.
Good
We are
afternoon.
live.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining Russell, A Place of Promise. First political conversation with political appointees are elected officials that represent Russell. But before we begin our conversation with Councilwoman Sexton-Smith, I would like to tell you about Russell, A Place of Promise. Russell, A Place of Promise is a justice-based initiative focused on generating investments in the people and place that make the Russell neighborhood very special. With nearly $1 billion planned and underway investment, Russell is poised to experience a neighborhood renaissance. The time is right for new strategies that focus on residents and business retention through Black wealth building and investment without displacement. RPOP's vision of building Black wealth through investment without displacement include connecting individuals and families to resources leading to home ownership, building pathways and opportunities for traditional and non-traditional business creation and retention, and creating innovative connections to career track jobs, placements, and growth. Some people would ask, what do political conversations have to do with Black wealth building in Russell? And when we talk about Black wealth, we not only talk about the financial part, but we talk about the mental health, the physical health, and the political wealth. Because if we do not have the political leaders that believe in disbanding, redlining, and other policies that have stopped, eliminated, put barriers up for Black folks or people of color for building wealth, we're going to remain in this position for decades to come. So it starts today in Russell that we are having our first political conversations to make sure that we have the elected officials that we need that support building Black wealth in the Russell community. I would like to, at this time, I would like to say thank you, Councilwoman Barbara Sexton-Smith, for being our first guest on political conversations with our elected leaders, our political appointees. How are you doing today?
Hey, Jackie, I'm doing great. And thank you so much for inviting me to be with you on this maiden voyage. This won't be the first time that Jackie Floyd and I have entered into new territory together, because I remember it was decades ago when Chief Robert White was here in Louisville, Kentucky as our chief of police, and he formed some police advisory boards. And believe it or not, he selected and approved Jackie Floyd and me to be two of those members. And that's when we first met each other. And Jackie's laughing because we had such a great time doing that incredibly important work.
Yes.
You know, and it was bringing the concept of community-oriented policing here into the 1st Division. And I was elected to be the president of that. And we immediately, remember, Jackie, we decided we were going to be the connector with our local law enforcement, the police officers, with folks that were living in public housing. That became the very first thing we wanted to do. And so we did that. And here we are all these years later, and we're basically doing the same type of work, Jackie. And I'm so proud of you for the work you're doing and that you've done in the Russell neighborhood. So thanks for having me with you this evening.
Thank you. And please forgive me, I have my great-granddaughter in the background, and she knows nothing about being quiet. She talks as much as I do, okay? Whether it's to other people or to herself or what. So I just wanted to, let y'all know that she's in the background. And we also have Teresa Z with us today. Thank you, Teresa, for your support. And we have my tech person that I couldn't do anything without, Christian. This morning, I was sitting up here thinking, I said, wait a minute, I'm doing this conversation. Who is going to be on there with me? I text Christian early this morning and she agreed to do it. So I Christian, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you
So,
for having
okay, let's get started. Councilwoman Sexton-Smith, how has it been for you over these past 4 years as one of the representatives for the Russell community?
Well, it has been, first of all, it has been an unbelievably wonderful journey. And 5 years ago at this time, I never dreamed that I was going to be running for an elected office. And I've shared that with you before, Jackie. And I just really felt a strong calling placed on my heart to do this. And so we ran and we won, and then we got to serve for 4 years. And that seems like it was just yesterday. And so we have 46 days left, including today, and my time in office to represent and serve and help District 4. And I really have loved every minute of it. Some days are more effective and more productive than other days, but everybody in the entire district wanted all the same things. Everybody just wants a great, nice place to live, a safe place to live. They want equal opportunity for everyone. And we have fought that fight, and we're going to fight it all the way to December 31st at midnight, Jackie, if we have to. And so we still have a lot of great work to do, but I've loved this. And we focused a lot on housing. Housing first. We have focused a lot on public safety. We talked about creating more and better jobs in the neighborhoods, not just in one part of town, but more and better jobs in the neighborhoods. We talked about focusing on more and better services in every neighborhood. And then all of that produces safer neighborhoods. So we've been on this journey together. We're making some good progress, but we really do have a long way to go.
Yes, we do. What strategies do you feel should be initiated by the Russell community to enhance what is currently underway?
Well, our Russell community, as you know, but maybe there's some folks that have joined and are listening to us. When we talk about our Russell community, and look what I've got, Jackie. I've got my button that you gave me in the beginning of time. When we start, you were handing these buttons out back
Yeah,
in, Jackie, I think it was in October of 2016. Does that sound right?
that sounds about right.
You would have been over in Beecher Terrace when David Tandy was having Beecher Terrace little festivals with a food truck and a big
Yes.
bouncy thing,
Mhm.
right? Remember, all
Yes.
the kids wanted us to get in that bouncy, and I said, we're not going to do it.
No,
So we
don't want to
did.
embarrass myself.
So the strategies that we talk about for the Russell neighborhood, when I look at the Russell neighborhood, I define that as from the east boundary is Roy Wilkins Avenue, I think, to 34th. Is that correct? River Park?
32nd Shawnee
32nd.
Expressway.
So it goes to Shawnee Expressway, and then Broadway, I believe, is our south boundary, and Market is our north boundary. That is a very large, almost perfect rectangular area of our community. And some of the greatest, richest history in our community is there within the Russell neighborhood. There's so much to be proud of and to appreciate. So strategies would be the Vision Russell, and for everybody to continue promoting the Vision Russell and the Russell Place of Promise. And just when you think you've gotten a little bit tired of talking about it, or you've made one too many presentations about it, my advice is that's when you got to go out and keep talking more about it, because not everybody is familiar with it. So the strategy is to get everybody connected in that large rectangle, whether it's through apartments or homes, the houses of worship, which are many, the businesses, and the schools. Oh my gosh, we got great schools right in our Russell neighborhood. You know, you've got to love the kids over there at Coleridge Taylor and Bick Elementary and Roosevelt Perry, you know, just to name a few, Western Middle School. And so I think all of those communities and constituents working together to make sure all their independent voices are always being heard. And then, Jackie, another strategy is just when you think everybody's on board and moving forward together, it's time to circle back around and check in with everybody, because people change their minds or they have new experiences, and just keep everybody connected in the conversation.
Well, I want to turn it over to Christian for a minute because she wants to tell you about our exciting program that we have. It's called Russell for Russell Residents Coalition. And that's one of the strategies that we're working on with the Russell residents. Christian?
So, hello everyone. I'm Christian Pierce. I'm sorry, Lord. Community Outreach Specialist for Russell Place of Promise. But so our Russell for Russell Resident Coalition is basically a stakeholder agreement between Russell Place of Promise and 26 community or Russell residents and other community. So basically what it is to hold us accountable in the work that we're doing in the community, and as we're building out building relationships with other community-based organizations, helping them to be accountable. But basically the members of this coalition will be responsible for what RPOP looks like moving forward. As of right now, we are being incubated by Cities United, but that's only up until I guess 2023. After that point, like, the people in the Russell for Russell Resident Coalition will decide, hey, well, we want this to be an LLC, or we want this to be a nonprofit organization. So they'll be responsible for that. There also will help us to implement different strategies within the Russell community to help us with building Black wealth and all of those roles that we have as Russell a Place of Promise. The Madison Street building, which I guess Teresa can tell you a little bit more about that, but we have a site on 30th and Madison Street that is going to be developed here pretty soon. And so the Russell residents, along with the Russell for Russell Resident Coalition members, will be responsible for what that turns into. Will it be a co-working space? Will it be a garden? It will be whatever the residents say that it is. So we are in the beginning processes of it. We just had our second meeting on this past Thursday. So we've already selected the 26 members. We've gotten to know each other. We've looked at some of the models in other cities who have already built out stakeholder agreements so that we can have something to go off of. And I'm excited for these next couple weeks that we've got with them. And I hope that I explained that good. That was my first time really explaining it live. But yeah, I'm really excited about this. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Well, let me say this, Christian, you did a great job explaining that. And I think the key strategy for Russell Place of Promise is for Christian, you and some other folks just like you, just get out and walk the neighborhoods, because with that gorgeous smile of yours and that wonderful laugh in your voice and how your vision and how excited you are, that enthusiasm will create more enthusiasm. And the more porches you stand on, as long as you stay 6 feet away from folks and have your mask on, but the more folks you talk to, the more impactful the Russell Place of Promise vision will be. And what it takes is just getting out there in the neighborhoods.
Well,
people will love to see you.
Yeah, that's actually my favorite part with Miss Jackie. She pushes for us to get out there and build those relationships, those personal relationships, like us going to the people, not the people coming to us. So
right.
I'm blessed to be with you all.
I am not going to get sidetracked talking about our outreach activities, because I can easily do that. So I'm trying to stick to the questions that I have, okay? How can the Russell community, predominantly our African American community, open doors to inclusivity, and particularly, and what does that look like from your perspective?
So Jackie, is the question, how can folks in the Russell neighborhood open their doors to be more inclusive?
Yes.
All right. Well, I think that, that's a very broad topic, and that could be from residents to places of worship to businesses. So I would love to see the Russell community start having periodic socially distanced engagement opportunities. And that would create a connectivity that makes us look and feel like we're more open and we're more welcoming. And maybe there are ways, and every time you do this, maybe you make sure several businesses and of course residences, and get a few places of worship, and get at least one of the schools involved. So then you start looking like there's a collaboration that's going on amongst the folks to be more inclusive. I find the Russell neighborhood extremely inclusive. It's why it was a little bit hard for me to answer the question, because I had not walked every street and every alley and stood on most of the porches until I ran for office. But when I did, some of the friendliest folks in all of Louisville are the Russell neighborhoods and the Russell businesses. So I felt the warmth, and I felt the embrace, and I felt the inclusivity, and immediately engaged and welcomed me in. So I felt that naturally. Now, that doesn't mean there's not room for growth and room to be more open. Another thing that we might want to think about is really partnering with some significant financial institutions. Because when you talk about inclusivity, and is there room for everyone? Yes. Is everyone welcome? We got to work on that. And can everyone afford to be in that? Well, with our financial institutions partnering with us on some wealth creation and financial independence models that I know you all are working on, that starts building toward that business ownership, that moves toward home ownership, then when that starts happening, then the inclusivity feels a little more real, and it feels a little more attainable for everyone.
Teresa, would you like to talk about our relationship with the businesses in Russell?
I would love to. Thanks for asking. So before the pandemic, we had started something called the Front Porch Campaign, which was an effort to go out and talk to business owners in the neighborhood and to introduce them to Russell, a place of promise, with the hope of encouraging them to hire more employees who live in the Russell neighborhood. So we know that there are just about 178 businesses in Russell, but that only a very small percentage of folks who live in the neighborhood actually work in the neighborhood. And that's not uncommon, but we'd like to see more employment from the neighborhood in the neighborhood, because it cuts down on transportation. It gives people a job that's close to home and close to all the things that they're probably doing in their daily lives. Plus, there's a really great opportunity to hire from a very talented pool of folks who live in the neighborhood for those businesses. So it, helps business owners not have as much turnover, to have a really talented group of folks that they can hire from. But the other thing that we're doing is we're working with particularly the Black-owned businesses in Russell. So there's 178-ish businesses in Russell, but only a small percentage are Black-owned. And that's not atypical across Louisville. I think the statistic is like 2 or 3% of businesses in the city are Black-owned. And so our goal in working with the Black-owned businesses in the neighborhood is to help them become stronger and more resilient, so that as change happens in the neighborhood with the redevelopment of Beecher Terrace and with other investment that's coming to the area, those businesses are ready to take advantage of that new opportunity to grow their business and to stay in place. And so one of the things that we'll be kicking off later this year is actually a business accelerator that's focused on strengthening and increasing resilience among the Black-owned businesses of Russell, and extending that opportunity to other Black-owned businesses across the West End. One of the things that we've learned during the pandemic is that, just like the statistics we've seen from across the country, a very small percentage of Black-owned businesses in Louisville, and an even smaller one in Russell, have been able to access the federal and local relief funds that have been made available. And that's been a function of banking relationships not being there. So going back to your very good point about maybe we could partner with a big financial institution on wealth creation and financial stability in Russell, that's something that business owners need as well. And so we're hopeful that through this accelerator and through the outreach that we're doing in Russell, that the businesses that we're very interested in seeing stay, which are the Black-owned businesses and all the businesses really, are able to have the resources that they need to not just survive, but to thrive and grow and stay strong in the neighborhood.
And one of the businesses I want to give a shout out to Bumper to Bump on 15th and Chestnut. They have this sign, you know, and I tell everybody I'm a proud Russell resident, and then you've got it over the viaduct, Russell Proud. So I was looking up, I was walking as I usually do in the community, and I see they had this sign, Bumper to Bumper, Russell Proud. And it's just like, okay, the businesses are proud to be in Russell, and that's just a sign for other businesses to come into Russell, to be proud Russell residents and business owners. And so let me stay in my script, okay?
Can I jump in real quick before you do
Okay.
that? Because I
Okay.
also have to give a shout out to our friends at Park Community Credit Union. So
Right.
thinking about our financial partners, Park has come along to provide a couple of resources that have been really, really helpful and that we hope more people will be able to take advantage of around lending. And that's mortgage lending. And then there's a micro business product as well. And so Park has always been there with Russell, a Place of Promise. And I just couldn't let the financial institution part of the conversation go without mentioning that.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Councilwoman Sexton-Smith, let's see. Okay, were you able to accomplish your personal goals for District 4 and particularly the Russell community?
Well, thank you for that question. And when we think about my personal goals versus the goals of the district, I'll never forget on December 21st of 2016 is when I took the official oath of office. And although I did not take over the office until January 1 of 2017, I don't know if anyone remembers or not, but I said, I will not go inside City Hall and I will not go inside to a judge's chambers to have an official swearing in ceremony. And everybody said, so what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to go right to the middle of the Russell neighborhood and I'm going to stand out on a street corner and let all the people that want to join us. So my first personal goal was to create a great connected community and to imagine a place where everyone felt connected. So my very first official act was to have the swearing in ceremony with the Jefferson County Judge Executive, Queenie Averett, there to administer the oath of office to me, where I swore to many things. And we stood at the corner of 18th and Muhammad Ali, and several hundred people joined. It had to have been one of the largest swearing in ceremonies that there was and it was cold. It was December 21st. And there at the corner where Sweet Peaches is, as soon as we finished the swearing in ceremony, Pam Haynes at Sweet Peaches began handing out turkeys and hams. So I must say, at first, I thought all those folks were there just for the swearing in ceremony. Actually, they were there for the hams and turkeys and also to welcome me officially into the neighborhood. And it was really fun. So first personal goal was met. And one of the television reporters asked me the same question on that day. And they said, so now that you're the councilwoman sworn in, what are your personal goals? And I said, my personal goals for the district, I really hadn't thought about the platform yet, but I tell you what, I want to make sure that we have food, clothing, and shelter for everyone, not just here in the Russell neighborhood, but for everyone in District 4 and all throughout the city. I said, so first and foremost, as an elected official, I'm going to work toward making sure that people have access to affordable, healthful food, because that's a basic human right, that folks are going to have access to quality, affordable housing, and that folks are going to have the clothing they need on their back to go to the work that they choose to do. So I will tell you, Jackie, have we achieved those? We haven't achieved them, because as it's written in the word, the poor will always be with us, and there will always be those who need to be housed, and we will house them. And there'll always be those who need to be fed, and there'll always be those who need clothing. But have we made progress? Oh, yes, we have. We've made a lot of progress, and much of that progress is due to Russell Place of Promise and the work that Vision Russell has brought forth, just starting there with Beecher Terrace, with a $200 million choice neighborhood. That was one of the biggest successes, and folks will be starting to move in there fairly soon. And then you think, well, has there really been any progress with food? Even though 12 grocery stores closed in the first 18 months or so that I was in office, there has been a door opening to look at other models. So the Kroger's and Dare to Care mobile market that services 15 different locations every week is loved by people who use that service. And we're now getting ready to look and see what the future of the Louisville cooperative grocery, that's a model that's been in the works for a long time. And then we also have opened up other grocery models. So do we have it right? Not yet, but we're making some progress. Now, now I will say this, Jackie, and Jackie, I can't hear you if you're speaking. What I was going to add to the personal goals, I was focused on food, clothing, and shelter. But then on those great big goals, we've made a lot of progress towards more and better jobs in the neighborhoods and more and better services in the neighborhoods. And a lot of that has come through tax increment financing, which is a fancy term for public-private partnerships, where we put some private money in, we put some philanthropy money in, and we put some taxpayer money in to make certain development deals doable. And we've done close to $550 million of those in just the time since I've been in office, and that's created thousands of jobs.
Okay, and speaking of jobs, I want to ask you something too. I think that well, as we talk about home ownership and we talk about career track jobs and business creation and retention in Russell, has it ever crossed Metro Council's members or your desk about raising the minimum wage? And I'm talking about, because I think as we talk about, home ownership and business creation and retention, we need to look at the wages, because we can
Jackie, you're exactly right. And that is something that I've been saying from the very beginning of my time in office. I believe that we have to have a living wage in our community. And the longer we wait to do that, the higher that number comes.
Yes.
So 4 years ago, we talked about a living wage being $15 an hour. Well, today, I think that number is probably at least $17 an hour for a living wage. And when we say that, to answer your question, yes, minimum wage and the concept of passing legislation to put minimum wage at a higher level in Jefferson County, that has come before the Metro Council. And it came before the Metro Council before I was here, and they were trying to create a stair-step approach where you would take a few years to work your way into the acceptable living wage level. However, this is a conversation that needs to be pushed out of the neighborhoods. So maybe that's something Christian could work on also with the work she's doing that sounds so fabulous and grassroots. If enough people in every neighborhood call, email, and send communications to their local elected officials, their state elected officials, and yes, to the federal elected officials, that you want a living wage, minimum wage passed, and go ahead and say $17 an hour, because then we could get it passed on a federal level and it would be all across the country, as opposed to trying to get it done city by city. And I think it's very serious, because we talk about housing first. And if you look at the data, the numbers tell us that if you live in Jefferson County and you're working a minimum wage job, which is $7.25 an hour, that you would have to have 2 full-time, 40 hours a week, minimum wage jobs to get you to $14.50, which isn't, that would be an hour, right? Over 80 hours of a week. You would have to make that much money to be able to afford a basic 2-bedroom apartment in our community, which is running around $780 or $800 a month. Well, that is insane.
Right.
So then that means somebody on minimum wage can't begin to afford their own home, much less the clothing and the transportation and your insurance and your health care, school supplies for your kids, and other things that you need. So yes, we need to raise the minimum wage. And I say that we need to raise the minimum wage to at least $17 an hour. It is the right thing to do for the right reason at the right time. And I stand firm on that. I do not believe that any jobs would be lost. And that's one of the biggest arguments against it. Businesses say they could never afford to pay people that much. Oh, yes, you can. Because if everybody's making an acceptable living wage, then everybody is spending that in the economy. And it's a cycle that creates a great connected community where everyone has the same opportunity.
I agree with you. Now, what you said something about elected officials, and I just want to know that if Metro Council, some of the Metro Council members believe that there should be a living wage, how come the push is not on towards state officials, elected leaders, to raise the minimum wage? How come they're not Metro Council and our elected leaders in Frankfurt are not working together to push this issue?
Okay, that's a great question. And I do think that a lot of people are talking about it. There are people who are talking about it. We're just simply not making the progress that we would like to make. And so I think that when we see our state legislators go back into session this coming year, I think we're going to see a very different legislature and different activity, Jackie, because of what we've come through in 2020. None of us will be the same after coming through the global pandemic. There's been the fight for racial justice and social justice. And then so many of the inequities have been highlighted under a spotlight. Elected officials are going to have to negotiate, deliberate, and pass laws this next session that they may have thought they would never have to pass, but they need to because it's the right thing. And first and foremost, I'm talking about the reforms that are going to need to be put in place around law enforcement on a statewide level that then allow us to do what we really need to do here on a local level. And just as important will be this discussion about minimum wage. Because, you know, Jackie, we've talked about this. Poverty drives violence. Poverty drives violence. I believe that. And I believe that violence is a health issue and that we have to keep talking about it in those terms so that we can finally get the attention that we need paid. So it's just not a handful of people fighting for this and talking about it. It's a groundswell of support coming from the grassroots and coming from the community.
Okay. Let me get ready to ask a question. Okay.
All right.
Okay. What is your opinion as our elected leader representing Russell? Do you believe that the police can police themselves?
Well, absolutely not.
Okay.
No, I don't think, no, the police should not be set up to police themselves. I think that would be a system that would be set up to fail them and fail the community.
Okay.
I think you have to have independent regulation and governance. I think that's a basic human tendency, not just police. You know, it's the same thing with same thing in your household.
Okay.
You know, the children don't govern and regulate themselves. There are other people in that household that help set up those guidelines for which those children can operate and then hold those children accountable and bring them along. Businesses do not regulate themselves. That's why we have laws that govern and regulate what businesses can and can't do. And then the education system. The educational system in America is set up. It cannot regulate and govern itself. There are independently elected school boards and bodies that oversee those activities, because independent regulation and review and evaluation is a good thing. It makes us all better. It makes us all strive to be better, and it sets up a situation to be held accountable in the light of day. That is why the Civilian Review Board is so important in the Office of Inspector General to be set up by the Metro Council. We're going to vote on that this coming Thursday night. Those then become a civilian review board and accountability over local law enforcement. And that's the way that it should be. Now, yes, the local law enforcement will continue to have their public integrity unit and their professional standards unit. Those are very important bodies to be in place when there needs to be internal investigations. But that doesn't take the place of an overall overarching citizen review board that has an inspector general office and subpoena power.
Okay. Christian, do you have anything? Oh, one more thing. Where we're going? You know that I'm a news junkie, okay? So I'm looking at the news throughout the day, okay? City, state, local, national, just if it's news, I'm trying to see it. I've seen an article today where President James and Councilwoman Purvis have want to hire a private towing company. Could you tell us a little bit more about that regarding the cars that's been left on the streets for months and months? I've been having one right out here. When I pull out of my driveway, I know it's been there about 7 months and counting. So.
Right. So, and that's a great question, Jackie. And I'm glad you asked me about it, because if, as you know, I'm now answering all the phone calls that come into District 4 since Wanda Mitchell-Smith has now started her new role as Intergovernmental Relations Coordinator in Mayor Fisher's office. So the most asked question I got today, Jackie, was about that press release that talked about the towing of abandoned vehicles. So here is what we know. And I spoke to the manager at the impound lot first thing this morning, so I could be prepared to answer any questions that we received over the announcement that there's going to be increased efforts to tow abandoned vehicles or wrecked vehicles. So what we know is there are about 4,000 at least abandoned or wrecked vehicles all around Jefferson County. And a lot of those are in the Russell neighborhood and west of Roy Wilkins Avenue. So the impound lot has run out of room to be able to store cars there. So even if they could get them all towed, they don't have a place to be storing them and keeping them. So the impound lot entered into a contract agreement with Suburban Towing just recently, because Metro Council has requested that we start moving these cars off of the roadways. And so Suburban Towing is now helping the impound lot and LMPD tow cars, and they were aggressively doing so. However, we realized we need to be focused in which cars we're towing. So the announcement made today was to say, we're going to aggressively tow cars, but we're not going to focus on cars that just have an expired license or tags. Because if you own a car and your tag is licensed or the license is expired, you know that's your obligation to pay that and to get it, and you cannot drive it with an expired license or tag. However, I don't want that car being towed from in front of your house or apartment if you need a little bit of time before you can go and pay that to get it taken care of. So we've asked them to not tow those cars as quickly, but they are going to be looking for cars that are wrecked and abandoned. And for example, a car was towed in the Russell neighborhood this last Friday that had been abandoned for many, many, many months. It had 3 flat tires and it had an expired tag on it. So I'm trying to work through that car and help the lady that owns that car get that back to her. However, there will be a towing fee for that car, and she'll have to pay for that and to renew the license. And Jackie, I cannot hear you.
Okay, I'm getting good on Zoom, but I haven't got perfect yet, okay?
I think you're doing great, Jackie.
Okay, the towing fee, will it be the same as the city? And I know that the city impoundment lot charge you per day. As long as your car is there, they charge you per day. Will suburban towing have those comfortable fees with the city impoundment lot, or will theirs be higher?
Okay, that's another really good question. And I do know at Metro Council, we did pass an amendment to the whole ordinance a couple of years ago that regulates that so that it cannot be completely out of control. I asked the manager today what it was going to cost this one particular person to get the one vehicle. And I was told on that one, it was going to cost $151. Plus if there was a parking ticket. And on that particular car, there had been a parking ticket, and that was within the 7-day window. So it was going to be a $15 parking ticket and a $150 towing and that temporary storage fee for that one car. And it will vary based on what you said on the number of days that the car is there. I was also told that the cars towed by Suburban Towing are going to be taken to their property. And that was one reason they received the contract, because they had space where they could store vehicles, since we don't have enough space or any at the impound lot that's available.
Okay, now will they automatically tow cars, or will they have to receive a complaint from Metro, someone in Metro, or from your office or 311? It said there's a abandoned car at 15th and Chestnut. Go out and get that, or will they be cruising the streets back and forth to see the red cars, abandoned cars?
My understanding, based on the conversation that I had this morning with the manager at the impound lot, they were going to be looking for those wrecked cars and cars that had been there for extended periods of time. I did ask them if they were going to be in Metro Council District 4, to focus on cars that had been reported and requests made first. Now, I don't know if they will be able to do that or not.
Okay.
But I did make that request. So
Okay.
if there's a car, for anybody listening, if there's been a vehicle that's been abandoned for a very long time, and you know for a fact that the owner is nowhere around and it doesn't belong to you or one of the neighbors, please feel free to call my office, or you can call 311 and report that, and give the specific address and the license number and the make and model of the vehicle.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Smith. Christian, you said you had a question off Facebook.
Oh, yes, I did, but Teresa actually already answered it. So,
I'm sadly
Mimi,
all too familiar with the impound lot.
shout out to Mimi Wilson, who has been communicating with us in our comment section on Facebook. But she
Hi,
made a good
Mimi.
point.
I know Mimi Wilson. Hi.
She said, why can't Metro sell abandoned vehicles after a designated time for scrap and make a profit? And I thought that was a good idea. And then,
And we do.
yes.
Yep.
And we do.
So,
But
Teresa,
it's
you can
complicated.
explain, I guess, what your response to her. So anybody else who might not have seen the comment, they can know.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And I don't have a in my head sort of knowledge of the state law on this, but I do know that there are state laws about when the impound lot cars can get sold and which ones can get sold, and how long they have to be held before a sale can happen. And there's also laws on the books that prevent the sale of cars that are being held as evidence in a civil or criminal trial. So if there's a court case going on and there's a car that's part of the evidence, or a car that's at issue in that sale, that car can't get sold. And sometimes that car can never get sold, just in case the case ever comes back up. So it's really complicated, but there are sales on a fairly regular basis to try to get rid of some of the inventory in the impound lot.
That's an excellent response, Teresa. And it was within the last 2 years, we amended our ordinance here in Jefferson County to help reduce the amount of time that we had to hold those cars so that we could move those into auction more quickly. And it was just about a week ago that I did ask if we were actively pursuing moving cars to auction. And I was told that they are to the maximum capacity they can. Another thing that's interesting about the cars that have been part of a crime scene or are part of a lawsuit, last year when I was helping to locate a possible location for the impound lot, I was told a year ago there were 350 cars on the average at any time that are part of a civil or criminal lawsuit or investigation. So for those of you watching, that's quite a few cars. So I thought the perfect response to that would be, why not find a big warehouse somewhere that could put all of those cars that are being held long-term for investigative purposes, put all those inside a great big warehouse. And if you had to, put them up on racks. Because when you travel to great big cities, I don't know, I saw this in a big city one time, actually parking lots had you drive your car in and it moves it up on like a cantilever. I thought that was the craziest thing in the world. So I
In New
suggested
York,
that.
it's like that.
Yeah. Oh, Christian. Okay. So you've seen that. Yeah.
Well, it is 6:57. This has been an enjoyable hour. Councilwoman Sexton-Smith, would you like to close us out?
Well, of course I would. And I just want to thank you, Christian and Jackie and Teresa, for inviting me to be the first one. And thanks to Miss Wilson for watching. I've loved all of the conversation that we've had. So as we think about building out Russell Place of Promise and the Russell neighborhood, I want to invite everyone in Russell. Please ask folks to come and visit us in Russell. There are some great businesses in Russell. We don't have enough, but we do have some. And come and visit us and take a look, because there's a lot of great history in the historic Russell neighborhood. And there's so much development going on. You'll get to see Beecher Terrace being redeveloped and folks moving in. Go to 11th and Jefferson and 12th and Jefferson area. You're going to see a great 2-story business building that's almost ready to open up and have new businesses inside. And then go to 18th and Muhammad Ali and check out the Kentucky Center for African American Heritage after you go over and have a sandwich and soup at Sweet Peaches. And then go over to Chef Space right there at 1803 West Muhammad Ali, and take a tour. You'll be glad you did. And then circle through Shepherd Park and Roosevelt Perry and Bick Elementary and Coleridge Taylor and Western Middle School. By golly, we got something for everyone. Stop by Joshua Tabernacle Church there also on 15th and say hi to Reverend Snarden on your way down to Jefferson Street to see Hewlett Temple, and say hi to the senior pastor, Valerie Washington. So as you all can tell, I love this job and it has loved me back. I have no idea what in the world I'm going to do, but come January 1, I'm going to get still and I'm going to listen, and God's going to send me off to do something else. And I hope it's side by side with Jackie Floyd.
I know that's right.
Thank you. And I just want to say, while you're on 18th Street, please stop by Russell Place of Promise at 1718 West Muhammad Ali, right across from the African American Center. But Teresa, would you have any final words? You a Christian?
No, this has been wonderful. Thank you, Councilwoman, for spending some time with us this evening. Thank you for your insight and your intelligence and your reflection on Russell.
You're more than welcome. Thank you.
I also wanted to say thank you for your kind words of wisdom, and also let everyone who is watching know to share this video, like this video, comment, and we'll continue to comment after this video is already posted. And don't forget to join us this Thursday for our Bread and Butter series. We'll be back here to talk all things generational wealth building at 7 p.m. So be on the lookout for that.
I just want to say Thank you very much, Barbara Sexton-Smith, Councilwoman Barbara Sexton-Smith, for representing Russell the way that you have. We have been honored that you have been our council person for the last 4 years. And just because you're no longer our council person, please don't think that I will stop calling you, okay? Or
No,
emailing
you
you,
won't.
okay? Thank you. And you all have a good night and so long.
Thanks, Jackie.
Bye,
Thanks, Krista.
everybody.